Poll: over 80% of Americans view China unfavorably as Washington-Beijing relations sour. Chinese regime arrests man over fake news stories by ChatGPT. The demise of the Made in China industrial policy. Italy plans to drop out of China's Belt and Road deal.
Most Americans have unfavorable views of China, 83%, and the number of people who see China as an enemy surged as the tensions between Washington and Beijing escalated in recent years. According to a Pew Research Center survey, the figure also found that over 44% of Americans express very opposing views on China. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's leadership, also shows little confidence in Americans, when around 3/4 of Americans have little or no confidence in Chinese leader Xi Jinping. A rising number of Americans view China as an enemy, 38% in the Pew Research Center's latest poll, compared with 25% in the January 2022 survey. About half of Americans, 52%, view China as a competitor, while only 6% see it as a partner. The relationship between Washington and Beijing has deteriorated significantly over the past few years. The two countries have clashed over multiple issues, such as Taiwan, trade, human rights, and the origins of the COVID pandemic. Beijing-Moscow relations are also a significant concern for Americans, particularly amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This issue concerns Americans more than any other issues in the US-China relationship, including trade, Taiwan, or human rights. Following Chinese leader Xi Jinping's meeting with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin during his Moscow visit in March, 62% of Americans see the China-Russia alliance as a severe problem for the US. For the Taiwan issue, poll respondents also see correlations between Russia's treatment of Ukraine and the Chinese regime's treatment of Taiwan, as many Americans hold much more favorable views of Taiwan than China, 65% versus 14%. The Chinese regime's authorities have detained a man for allegedly using ChatGPT to create a fake news story about a train crash, marking the first arrest in an AI-related case in the country. Police in Gansu province said the suspect, surnamed Hong, exploited modern technological methods to fabricate fake information and proceeded to spread it on social media. Investigations found that the fake article claimed the train crash killed 9 construction workers. The post gained over 15,000 views on China's social media platform Baijiahao before being removed. Police revealed that Hong allegedly used ChatGPT to edit viral news stories and repost them on the Baidu-owned platform. He told police his WeChat friends had shown him how to generate cash for clicks. ChatGPT is not available in China, but can be accessed via VPN networks. According to Bloomberg, authorities said that due to Hong's large-scale dissemination, he might be liable for the major crime of picking quarrels and provoking trouble. Committing this offense could get an individual at least 5 years in prison. The Chinese regime's new rules for deepfakes ban service providers and users from using AI technology to generate, release, and fabricate false information. Last month, China released a set of draft regulations that will force chatbots created by its tech firms to adhere to the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, line. The regime noted that the content produced by generative artificial intelligence should embody the core values of socialism.
Made in China 2025 was first revealed in May 2015 with the aim of using government subsidies, mobilizing state-owned enterprises, and pursuing intellectual property acquisition to catch up and then surpass the technological prowess of the West in advanced industries by 2049. However, about 7 years after Beijing launched the plan, policymakers and security officials in the United States and other developed countries increasingly saw China's attempt to become the dominant player in advanced technology as a matter of national security. Therefore, the slogan is rarely seen in public. Analysts have recently pointed to a series of salient issues in the Made in China 2025 plan that pose a threat to global trade and which, if left unaddressed, will quickly end the Made in China era. Those are regulatory environment. Many of the current difficulties in the Chinese economy stem from the strict regulations on the private sector that President Xi Jinping introduced in 2020, from education to technology. In July 2021, China issued a series of regulations that shut down the $120 billion private tutoring industry, shutting down tens of thousands of companies. At the same time, the Chinese government handled the country's largest ride-hailing app Didi just days after the parent company's shares began trading in New York. This led to a sell-off in Chinese corporate stocks around the world. Brock Silvers, an investment firm, Kaiyuan Capital China, said, "Global investors don't want to play regulatory guessing games or worry that tomorrow's news may deplete another otherwise attractive company or business model. Foreign companies in China regularly face difficulties due to the Chinese side's frequent breach of contractual payment obligations, irregular accounting practices, trademark and patent infringement, financial and commercial fraud, undisclosed debt, or competing for control in joint ventures." Meanwhile, many Chinese prosecutors and police officers do not have adequate legal training. At the same time, legislatures and officials follow the rules that suit their political interests, so whenever a lawsuit occurs, the party that suffers is usually a foreign enterprise. Theft of intellectual property rights. In 2018, USTR reported that its investigation under Section 301 found that China pursued a range of unfair and harmful policies and practices related to technology transfer, intellectual property, and innovation. According to the American Chamber of Commerce, 86% of counterfeits came from China. Intellectual property theft costs the U.S. economy up to $600 billion annually. China has stolen American secrets in everything from trade to defense. China has stolen data from U.S. defense projects such as the F-35, the Aegis combat system, the Patriot missile system, unmanned underwater vehicles, and thermal imaging cameras. Technology transfer. Technology transfer is the cost of doing business in China. In particular, China adopts many regulations that require or pressure foreign companies to transfer technology, place significant restrictions on the terms of technology licensing, direct or facilitate domestic companies to acquire assets and from foreign companies to acquire advanced technologies, conduct and support intrusions and thefts from the computer networks of U.S. companies to obtain unauthorized access to intellectual property. These actions aim to get foreign companies to spend billions of dollars on research and development, while Chinese companies get free technology. Commercial espionage. In April 2018, U.S. intelligence agencies said China's policy of discrimination against foreign investment, coupled with China's recruitment of foreign scientists and targeted acquisitions of American companies, constitutes an unprecedented threat to the American industrial base. The Chinese government steals technology from foreign companies operating in China. Local internet service providers partner with the government to monitor businesses' email. Many owners of local companies are members of the CCP, and the new regulations also include the establishment of party cells in all private companies. Article 27 of the Chinese cybersecurity law facilitates espionage activities and Chinese companies' transfer of personal data. In addition, foreign governments have recently uncovered sophisticated espionage campaigns targeting employees in hotels across China. According to the U.S. intelligence community, classified information is collected from mobile devices after agents have logged into wireless connections. Based on this data, Chinese intelligence agencies can track locations and intercept communications on mobile devices. Technologies such as automotive battery and brake technologies, high-speed rail technology, aviation test data, and valuable chemical and pharmaceutical formulations were also stolen. Companies are increasingly concerned about the complex surveillance environment in China. Labor issues. Labor force discontent has long been present in mainland economy for various reasons. Protests, strikes, and shutdowns have become increasingly common nationwide, especially since China has implemented automation to reduce costs. Besides, China's workforce is aging. This signaled the end of an era of cheap manufacturing and the beginning of a new chapter where the investment environment would become more challenging. In addition, China is weaponizing its population. Companies could be banned from operating in China if their employees make comments that the authorities consider harmful to their authoritarian policies. Companies must comply with government policies or else they will be ostracized and targeted by smear campaigns on social media. China's labor costs are higher than most ASEAN countries, and their standard of living is already close to that of the developed world. The cost of running a factory in the US and China is almost the same, while American workers are much more productive than their Chinese counterparts. Not only that, the government's enactment of new law requiring companies to increase employee compensation and benefits also significantly increases companies' costs. Observers have warned foreign companies doing business in China about the gray rhino phenomenon. Asymmetric competition by Chinese companies, intellectual property theft, and technology transfer are obvious but neglected threats that have enormous impacts with dire consequences for foreign companies. Loss of trade and markets led to the collapse of ancient civilizations. An unfavorable investment environment could lead to the downfall of China as an economic power. This is not a pause, but the end of Made in China.
The only G7 member joining China's global infrastructure scheme has told the US it is stepping out. As Bloomberg reported on May 9th, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni told House Speaker Kevin McCarthy that her government was going for a potential withdrawal before the end of this year. However, a final decision has yet to be reached. Sources said the Meloni government is still deciding on a specific date over concerns of economic retaliation from China. Nothing is likely to be revealed before the G7 leaders summit in Hiroshima, Japan on May 19th. Italy has to inform China before the end of 2023 if it wishes to end the deal. The two parties can leave the agreement after 5 years. Otherwise, the partnership goes on for another 5-year term. McCarthy had a chance to meet with Meloni as he visited Rome for the first time since becoming the House Speaker on May 4th. Sources said Washington had pressed Rome on spelling out its position in continuing its Belt and Road Initiative with Beijing, which was signed in 2019 when Giuseppe Conte was the prime minister. Now, Rome is in a dilemma of maintaining trade with a company that will use economic coercion to push its political agenda. Meloni used to call the BRI participation a big mistake in 2022, before she was elected. Thibaut Mouzergue, Europe and Euromed program director at the International Republican Institute, told Decode 39 that the BRI has not led to anything positive for Italy. He added, "The investments promised have not arrived, even though the risks of malign Chinese influence have gone up.